good day. How you going? What do you know? Don't strike a light. Good day. And how you going? Just say good day, and you'll be right.
Welcome to the Midweek End Times News and Trends Briefing as we share major events and what is happening around the world as it relates to Bible prophecy. Today's date is Wednesday, February 15th, 2017. I hope and pray that you're all doing well and having a blessed week so far. Just wanted to encourage you and exhort you to stay balanced with all that's going on in our life, that we need to have the right focus, to be refreshed, to have the right amount of sleep physically. We need to be exercising. We need to have a right amount of food intake so we're healthy. We just need to be refreshed because if you're tired and worn down, we're not going to make the best decisions as well in our life, and it affects us. It affects our sharpness and our focus. We need to stay alert. We need to stay guarded. We need to guard our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. We need to not be letting the world bombard us with its attacks or with the darkness that's there. We need to let our light shine brightly, and we need to stay encouraged, folks. We need to be built up. We need to continue to find those ways to fill our tanks, if you will, so that way we can keep running the race that's set before us. And we can do that by the Word, by encouraging messages, by having some positive friends around us instead of people that just drag us down and continue to heap their criticism or their negativity upon us. So we need to stay encouraged. Find those ways to fill that tank up in your life, so that way you're always focused and just a blessing to be around. Anyways, just wanted to encourage you with that. Some other news items that have risen to the surface in the last several days. Again, the biggest one that hit the news over the last 24 hours or so is the resignation of General Flynn. It was the right decision and at the right time. Again, his departure was the most dramatic moment so far of Trump's presidency. It's only been a 24-day period so far, which the White House repeatedly, there's all kinds of other distractions and miscues and other internal dramas that have been going on as well. And part of the statement that was made by Mr. Flynn, he said, "Unfortunately, because of the fast pace of events, I inadvertently briefed the president-elect and others incomplete information regarding my phone calls with the Russian ambassador. I have sincerely apologized to the president and vice president, and they have accepted my apology," and he put this in the resignation letter. Now, there was reports that came from the DOJ 3 weeks prior to this, where there was some information that came to the president. We didn't know what the full scale it was, but I think part of the process, because you want to trust a guy that had all these years of military experience and has a great track record, and you want to see how things kind of play out in this situation, that they probably had to take some time to investigate themselves and kind of really sort through the issues. So again, I'm sure that they went through their process, but I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and how they came to this decision and why did they put the General Flynn in the first place. Again, these are some questions that I'm sure that will come out at some point, but either way, this was a major development that affects not only U.S. but also other policies around the world. But like we've said many times in leadership circles, is that we're all replaceable. So I'm sure there's going to be another great, outstanding individual who's going to be able to fill that role. On to another item which creates a lot of situation, another leadership role. Hamas elects a new radical leader in Gaza. This came out of Ynet News. So the following elections for the terror organization internal leadership, Sinwar, a renowned radical in Hamas who was released as part of the Shiite deal, takes the reins to rule the strip from Khalid Michel, despite Ismail being slated for the top spot. So upon his release, Anwar called for further kidnappings of Israeli defense soldiers. So this new guy that's going to be taking over this terrorist organization, it's going to continue to escalate the damage. It's going to escalate the threats, the attacks, more than ever before. On another issue, speaking of Bible prophecy, as we know, the end times will have earthquakes in various places, and the magnitude to the frequency. But there was a report that came out of Hurry Daily News in Turkey. It was in northwest of Turkey, Dardanelles. Since February 6th, they said there was 749 plus earthquakes, and most of them were 5 to 5.5 in magnitude. And what they're saying is that within the next 15 to 20 days or so, they're expected to have a lot more earthquakes, and possibly even more in greater magnitude. So the frequency, the intensity of these earthquakes is kind of what's caught my attention. Again, they're happening all over the world, but you're seeing more of these things taking place. On another issue going on into Europe, Germany in chaos as Muslims are burning down their own refugee centers. This came out of the Express website, how Muslim migrants are posing as refugees in Germany have been behind a series of destruction arson attacks on refugee centers where they are housed. Why would Muslims do this to their own shelters? They don't like the accommodations, and they want to be placed in nice homes and apartments of their own. That's why they're doing this. The Express talks about how Germany destroys it in a series of these devastating fires in recent months. Many have been blamed on Muslim newly arrived invaders. Now another 2 blazes have erupted in the last week or so. Although no one's harmed in these particular fires, police have estimated the property and building damages comes into the tens of thousands of euros. Also, when speaking of damage, throughout Europe, but it's now coming to Canada, how Muslims' mass sexual assault, like the kind that we've heard in Europe, have been brought into Canada by Justin Trudeau. This came out of the Rebel media, and quite a few others carry this story. Some of them didn't because they don't want to have the true nature of what's happening with these refugees. But when one of Justin Trudeau's Syrian Muslim refugees, a 39-year-old father of 6, was charged with multiple accounts of sexual assault and sexual interference for molesting teenage girls at a West Edmonton Mall water park, only got minimal coverage from the Canadian media and no coverage by the American or European media. The Rebel talks about how the accused Syrian Muslim father brought his large family to Canada just a few weeks ago and was considered to be a model refugee, part of the leftist agenda and campaign to tell us how wonderful these folks are. Swimming pools, by the way, across Europe, and we've mentioned this, part of this whole Islamic invasion, have posters and brochures telling how the Muslim migrants not to sexually assault women. But, of course, they ignore that. They're doing whatever they darn well please, and it's not only there in Europe, but now they're experiencing some of this in Canada, and it's only going to continue to get worse unless things are done to deal with it. On another issue of lawlessness and violence, this report came out of here in Australia, out of news.com.au, how the world's deadliest gangs are now beginning to infiltrate here in Australia, the MS-13. So they're one of the most deadly gangs, and they're one of the most demonic to be a part of this thing. It's just fueled with hatred. They're so brutal. But the part of the reason why they're trying to infiltrate here in Australia is because of the drug market here. They're trying to increase that and take over. And Again, this gang really started back in Los Angeles in the 80s by refugees from El Salvador, and they've spread throughout Mexico, Canada, and other parts of the U.S., and now here in Australia. They're pretty tough looking with these tats all over the place. But they're very deadly. They use violence against people who disrespect them. And they say that there's more than 100,000+ of these across the globe that have joined the group. But it's just one of those things. It starts out with just seeing graffiti, and then it just escalates to the violence, to the drugs, to taking over territories, and how police are afraid to even deal with them. And even there's a jail there in El Salvador specifically just for them, and how terrified even the police are to deal with that situation. But this is a very deadly, violent group of people, and it's and according to the Australian Criminal Intelligence Chief Executive Chris Dawson, he told the Daily Mail the Mexican cartel activity started to emerge in Australia around 2014, which could be the sign that the gang is establishing itself in Australia. How these people get here is one thing, but these might just kind of naturally be brought up within here in Australia, because Australia does have a pretty strict immigration policy, which is a great thing, and why people would go against a nation, say for example the U.S., to want to have strong immigration policy and protect itself by having some borders or putting a wall up is beyond me. But here in Australia, surrounded by waters, and again they have a strong immigration policy here. But it seems to be how these people get in here, or how it's being grown up within Australia is another part of a discussion. But we're starting to see more of the violence here in Australia. On a separate issue, this kind of brings into, there's two items out of this one, on how building the wall won't cost taxpayers a dime, was the title of the article, and this came out of the Investment Watch blog. A couple other news sources carry a very similar item. But how Trump, all he needs to do is really keep his promise to cut government funding that was sent to some of these sanctuary cities. And there's some $27+ billion or so in federal funding for these sanctuary cities. And there was this picture, I think it came out of the dailysignal.com, that had top 12 sanctuary cities receiving federal funds. And experts say that roughly 1 in 5 of an estimated 11 million immigrants, or 2.2 million, live in one of the 12 cities that do not cooperate with U.S. immigration authorities, yet receive federal funds for a variety of programs. So sanctuary cities like Los Angeles, unfortunately, where I'm partly from, Orange County, but we are affected by Los Angeles. There's an estimated of 893 million illegals there. And there's a total of $502 million. New York, which might have 585,000 illegals, and $7.6 billion goes to them. Chicago might have 285,000 illegal, and they receive $5.3 billion. There's quite a few other cities there, but I thought that was a brilliant plan on the administration, is, hey, we'll cut federal funding, and that will just pay for the wall itself within this year. And so it's interesting to see, and it's sad to see these sanctuary cities taking place. One of those cities is one of the worst crime rates and murder capital in America, and that would be Chicago. The gun-controlled Chicago, just from the start of this year till now, there's been over 400 shot dead. So this came out of the crime report of the Chicago Tribune. Reports there's precisely 503 that have died this year so far in these shooting, and the disaster that's happening all throughout the streets there. Breitbart News also reported that more than 300 people were shot in the first 30 days of 2017. The Tribune reported 302 shootings in January through January 30th, which is just an average over 10 a day for 30 days. There's already been 700 homicides in Chicago to year to date. There are 54 in the first 30 days of 2017. By the end of January 22nd of this year, it was clear that Chicago was on a trajectory of another year of bloody streets and lost lives. According to the Tribune, at least 228 people were shot in Chicago, which was an estimated increase of 16 victims above the number during the same time last year. So there was at least 42 homicides by January 22nd, marking a 23.5% increase from the 34 homicides in the same period of 2016. And what a tragedy it is to hear and to read reports like this. Things that are happening in these cities across the world. But here, again, something needs to be done. Not only here in Australia, but Chicago and other places. But one of the first items that I think that needs to be dealt with and addressed there in Chicago is getting a new mayor. This mayor is not helping the situation. He does not care for the lives of the citizens and the people. With having this left agenda, anything goes mentality, they don't have a regards for life. They need to end the sanctuary city. They need to put back in law and order. And to clean up the mess, it starts with the top. And but more importantly, it starts with prayer. It starts with a prayer for people to be radically transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ, and for people to surrender their hearts and lives over to the Lord. And He's the only one that can bring healing and hope to these people. Only Jesus can bring peace to the hearts and to the situation. And there needs to be a respect for the authorities. But again, there's been so much abuse within the authorities and within the police. It's hard to have that. But again, when the previous administration didn't have the respect for the police or the Secret Service or the military, it's going to carry down through that. And again, the mayor there carries that same idea. So, as believers, we need to stand in the gap. We need to pray. We need to go out there and make a difference by sharing the gospel with others. We need to serve within our community, that kindness that needs to happen and compassion. But making a positive difference in the community, to be salt and light in these dark areas. And again, there are strongholds within these communities, these strongholds within these states and countries as well. And so, but those things can be broken down through prayer and fasting. But we see how the enemy, he knows his time is short, so he's going to cause as much havoc as possible and to attack and to afflict as many people as possible. And once people are afraid to do anything, then that's where he's won that battle. When people are afraid to share the gospel with people, or people are just, I'm not even going to deal with it, type attitude, the enemy is won. So we need to be of good courage, to stand our ground, stand firm, continue to make that difference, to be that influence that God has called us to be, wherever He's called us to be. No matter what country or what occupation, we are called to make that difference. Amen. And that concludes today's update. Until next time, God bless.